Tamshiaku is going net zero. Now, technically, it's already well beyond net zero because it's situated in the Amazon jungle, which is the biggest sink of that nasty greenhouse gas, carbon dioxide, in all the world. So why they would want to reduce its CO2 emissions more, I'm not really sure, but we'll get back onto that. Now, most of the communities, the larger communities up and down the river, have houses wired for electricity, but the communities tend to have a generator, a petrol or gasoline generator that will fire up at 6 in the evening as the sun's going down, and they'll leave run until about 9 o'clock at night. The houses have electric light bulbs, and people like to charge the mobile phones. But the houses very rarely have a television or a fridge. They might have, a few houses might have a music system, but that's as far as it goes. It's worth noting that Peru doesn't have a national power grid. When a town like Tamshiaku reaches a population of, say, 5,000 people, it becomes eligible for power 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. That's one hell of an investment, because not only do you have the power station, you have all the posts and the cables going all the way around the town. They've got to connect all the houses up. Every house has an electric meter, and if you don't pay, you'll get cut off. Yeah. They also have an office where people go to actually pay their bill monthly, and they have all the staff that are running the place from day to day in terms of maintenance and basic services. And here's Tamshiaku's power station. It contains 4 generators, each one of them driven by a diesel engine. And you can see at the front there are 2 enormous posts. They connect one to one half of the power grid in Tamshiaku, the other to the other half. Although the generators inside are configured that they generally feed both halves at the same time. And I was surprised to find out recently that the generators inside there are not all of the same size. They've got 2 generators that are 450 kilowatt. They've got 1 generator that's 300 kilowatts, and they've got a small set that's 80 kilowatts. Now, to give you an idea, that small set, 80 kilowatts, is probably enough to provide power to 500 houses. So even the small 80 kilowatt unit is quite potent in the overall scheme of things. Now, when the power station was commissioned, which was a couple of years before I got here, maybe 12 years ago, the intention was to run 2 of the generators and have 2 on standby, which was a nice, simple, elegant plan. It would have been a nice, elegant solution if it hadn't fell on its ass on day one. When they commissioned the power station, when they brought it into use 12 years ago, they immediately found out that 2 generators wasn't enough to provide power for the town. So they instantly had to put all 4 generators into operation. Now would be a good time to point out that those generators are driven by diesel engines, and that's where the CO2 reduction comes in. So there's where the net zero scheme comes in. 2 kilometers out of town, about 1.5 miles, they've cleared 6 hectares in order to install a solar farm. Wow, Tamshiaku's getting its own solar farm. The farm will have 3,500 panels installed over about 2.5 hectares. That's going to be the plan. Now, I want to put into context the size of the power, the megawatts or kilowatts I'm talking about. Now, I've already said the generators in the power station actually total, when you add them up, 450 times 2, 380. You get 1,280 kilowatts output by the existing diesel-powered power station. Yeah. Let's call that 1.2 megawatts, okay? A megawatt is 1,000 kilowatts. 1.2 megawatts. Now, to put things into context, I recently heard about a solar farm that was installed in Nebraska. in the United States. And that had 14,000 panels. It was 4 times the size of the solar farm that's being planned by planned for Tamshiaku. And the solar panels there provided 5.2 megawatts, not 1.2 megawatts, 5.2 megawatts. It was much bigger, but that's on the DC side. Now, a solar farm produces DC, direct current, DC power, whereas it needs to be connected to the grid, which is AC power. So you have to convert the DC to AC. Okay. Now the AC output of that solar farm in Nebraska was providing 4.4 megawatts. So the panels 5.2, the grid was getting 4.4. So there's 0.8 of a megawatt gone missing. 800 kilowatts gone missing. And where does that go missing? It's in losses, it's in heat, in the equipment that converts from DC to AC. Now 800 kilowatts is a lot of power. That's a lot of heat to dissipate. In Nebraska, they haven't got a big problem because it's a cool climate there. They can use fans and just blow out the hot air. That's easy. Tamshiaku ain't going to be that easy. Now, as I've said, the size of the solar farm they're installing in Tamshiaku is a quarter of the size of that of Nebraska. So it's actually probably going to put about 1.1 megawatts of power onto the grid. Remember, the diesel power station puts 1.2, so it'll be less than the diesel power station. And the losses will be a quarter as well. So the losses will only be 200 kilowatts. Now, if you think of one of those electric bar heaters you might put in your house at home, that's rated at 3 kilowatts. So 200 kilowatts is like 66 bar heaters. And you imagine sticking 66 bar heaters in a room and then having to get rid of that heat in a tropical climate where the temperature might typically be 25 degrees Celsius or even 30 degrees Celsius during the day. That's going to be a problem. Now, I'm assuming that if they're converting the DC to AC using a solid state solution, solid state means it has no moving parts. It's basically a box of electronics. That is what's going to generate the heat, and that is what's going to have to be cooled down. Now, if I was working on the design of this solar farm, I'd be thinking of an alternative solution to create the AC. What you could have is a DC motor driven by the solar panels, which drives an AC generator, and the AC generator connects to the grid. Okay, that's an alternative way of converting DC to AC. Now, it's much more efficient as well. It won't generate anything as much heat. Because it's got moving parts, it can create its own cooling system. It can have its own cooling fans integrated into it as well. But I imagine there's a question of cost involved here. What does a motor generator set cost compared to a box of electronics? Yeah, that's going to have been the issue, I think. But we'll have to see whether they're thinking about the situation of the losses, how they're going to cool down, how they're going to get rid of 200 kilowatts of heat. Now, the other strange situation we have here is because it's a solar farm, it only really produces electricity when the sun's up and when the sun's strong, okay? Now, I believe that if you've got a cloudy day, a lot of solar panels will work because they absorb the ultraviolet light that actually comes through the clouds, but they won't be as efficient on a cloudy day. And believe me, we've had a lot of cloudy days recently. So, ideally, they're probably going to expect 6 hours, and this is being optimistic, 6 hours of power from the panels every day. So what happens to the other 18 hours? Well, the diesel power station stays where it is. It's kind of standby for when there's not enough solar power. So whether they're going to keep the diesel generators running all the time and just fire up their power output when the solar panel's down, or whether they're going to shut the generators down and start them up when there's not enough solar power, I don't know. But I think Tamshiaku can expect a lot more blackouts than it used to have. And as regards CO2 reduction, operating the system like that, they're probably going to save 20% on the diesel fuel they use to power the other power station. 20% of the diesel fuel. Now I'm sure they consume a lot of diesel fuel in that power station. So 20% of that might be a significant saving. But the thing is, it's cost a lot of money to install the solar system, and it won't run itself. It will have to have staff. It won't be costless when it's complete. One interesting point, and I like this interesting point, is the system, the solar farm is actually being installed by a Chinese contractor. But the Chinese are going to walk away when it's finished and hand over the solar panel to the company that runs the diesel station. So it will all be controlled by the same people. And that's nice. That's a clever bit of economics there. Whoa, 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 whoa. What am I talking about? The man's gone mad. This isn't an economic project in order to save the cost of fuel. This is a project to save the planet. Yeah? This is a project to reduce carbon dioxide emissions. Isn't it? Isn't that what this is about? Isn't it? Well, let's think of plastic bags as an example. Plastic bags were destroying the environment. So what did the governments of the world decide to do? Did they ban the manufacture of plastic bags? No, they taxed the use of them. They turned it into a money spinning exercise. That's what they did, isn't it? And that's exactly what's happening here with the saving the environment. While we've got these climate change lobbyists harping on to say that if we don't get the temperature rise of the planet under control by 2026, it'll pass the point of no return and we're all gonna die. Is it really that serious? Because the way I see it, they're charging trillions of dollars worldwide every year in carbon taxes. They're not closing down the companies that are producing the oil and the coal and the natural gas, the companies that are doing the fracking. In fact, their projects are actually on the increase when you look at them. And if you look at the corporations involved in those projects, their share prices are rising. There's more investment in those companies, not less. You would expect less. You would think that their investors would abandon them thinking, oh my God, the climate change lobby are going to close all this down. Nobody's going to use oil anymore. Nobody's going to use coal anymore. Oh my God. And then things will get resolved naturally because the oil companies, the coal companies, they'd go bust. But that's not happening, is it? Am I being cynical here? Anyway, Tamshiaku is going net zero. Bullshit.